All right, here we are on a beautiful Tuesday morning in Grenada on the dock, waiting for Steven Satterley to come pick me up in the tender and take me over to Banana Pancakes. Here's the beautiful bay at Clark's Court. Sailboats everywhere, anchored mostly, and there's also a big marina. Steven picked me up in the tender right there on the dock and took me over to the boat. He likes to stand up in his tender because it's a smoother ride. Steven was hosting a friend of his on the boat who met us at the back of this Leopard 48. Here's a quick inside shot of the beautiful interior of this boat. There we go. Keep going.
So then I'd clear that, make sure the filter's good, put that back on, then I'd come back over, start the generator.
Yeah.
And then now I've drained the system of water. So my assumption at this point is that I haven't burned up a impeller, and that everything's good over here. And then
because you caught it right away.
Yeah, to verify that, I would come over, I check the water outflow here. Now there is this interim step that I did that we didn't talk about that is like you can try to determine if it's just a low water flow versus a no water flow. And so that step is you come over here, and the generator has, important because I didn't know this and it's important to know, the generator has two exhausts out. The two exhausts out are, this is the primary exhaust. So this is exhaust gas and water going out. It's open all the time because that is your exhaust out. The other line that we see on the back of the boat is just your visual indicator to let you know that the generator is pumping water, because you would never know here because it's under the boat.
Right.
So they have it teed off to where, 80% of the exhaust and water comes out here.
Okay.
But 20% comes out there, so you have a visual. Now, what I did was, it wasn't working. I started it real quick, and before I did all this, I came down here and I started it. I had Casey out back. I said, tell me if you get water. I shut this off. What's running?
You should get a lot of water.
You should get a lot of water.
Yeah.
Nothing. Okay, so we're heated. Okay.
Yeah.
Shut the generator off, open this back up, and then started my process.
All right,
so what that told me
that
was,
verifies the problem.
Yeah, like, hey, it's not that we have a low water flow, we have a no water flow.
Yeah.
Because immediately.
So a dry impeller isn't a crisis for a few seconds just to check that.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what the timeline is, but I mean, I was telling Casey, I go, I'm pretty mechanically inclined. I understand all the things that, came from the fire department. That's what, we did a lot, right? And guys, if you don't know and you're not diligent, you don't understand, you don't listen, you don't have that's one thing you'll get. You'll get a constant ear out for what's normal, what creaking is normal, what's not normal, what sound, what tone the generator or the engines make that's normal versus not normal. All that stuff you start.
And as captain of the boat, you want to educate everyone on the boat what's normal.
Every time.
If anything's not normal, you tell me.
And I do it all the time. So I'm always telling the boys, hear that? Hear that? That's not water coming out. And then because sometimes we'll be sitting back there and they'll say, Dad, I hear it. Okay, just give it a listen. There'll be times where a minute goes by and then all of a sudden, and it burps out. Yeah. It's weird. It has these cycles, right? Yeah. And it's like all of a sudden pours out. Mm-hmm. However, that could be just a partial blockage that worked through. So you just ear up, listen, which is why I don't like going to sleep with the generator on.
No.
Because then I could, now.
You want a quiet boat.
You got extra impellers, not a big deal. You burn them up. But I don't want that to happen. We've avoided that in a year.
Well, because it could turn into a mess like you described, with the impeller bits everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I don't want, and who knows, you get too hook pocket or warp things, could have not done it. So, yeah. So that is a generator thing. Now, because we're talking generator, I'll just go all in on generator right now. Well, first of all, so we'll shut the generator down. I'll just show you what the next step would be if you're like, I think I burned up my impeller, I'm going to check it. Do you know all this stuff, or have you done any of this?
Yes. So, from a theory standpoint, right, touching the boat, I've been on Leopard 40 and some of this, but please go, whatever you learn that's in critical, you just pass it along, right? Don't worry.
Perfect. So I always go, first thing is I take the load off of my generator. So I turn off my ice maker, turn off the air, anything that's pulling like a major load.
Right.
I'll shut down this way. Once it's shut down there,
and now you can hear the generator without a load.
Yeah, so now there's a really low load on the generator. I can obviously verify we're back to almost normal load.
There.
I mean, I could okay, I'm gonna shut down fans, and I'm gonna shut down I could shut down a lot more.
Yeah.
But the
don't
inverter doesn't
need
have a
to.
problem going back and forth.
Yeah.
With this moderate load. But the things that take extra load, I'm gonna for sure shut off.
Yeah.
Just for longevity purposes. Okay. So at this point, generator's running. The back end of the unit, which is the power generation portion, is still giving power to the boat.
Yeah.
So in order to tell the generator, stay running, but don't give me power anymore,
Mm-hmm.
I take my transfer button, I turn it off. I
Okay.
take my generator button, I turn it off. These are pretty much just what tell the generator to give power to the two banks.
So now just the motor's running.
So now it's just motor. And now what immediately happens is that this shuts off, and then our solar kicks on. So now instead of power coming from here through the inverter, giving the AC to the battery to the DC, now the solar is giving its power in, going to the inverter and going to the battery bank, which gives the DC. So it's just, you're either getting power from here or you're getting power from there. So, okay, so that's easy. So now it's off, and I always do it, and so shut off my power, let the generator recognize that we don't have power going out, let it kind of calm. Then I turn off my generator source power to the boat, give it a second to chill, because now I feel like it's ramping down. I want that cold raw water to pump through. And my goal, I was telling Casey today, is like, I want to make sure if it was running a little bit warm because it was pulling a lot and I had to work extra hard, I'm getting it to a regular operating temperature, which is like the 180 temp, roughly.
And do you see the temperature difference between load and not load?
No.
Yeah, I
Not like an
think
engine.
it could.
No, but I just want to make sure, like, it's like theoretical for me. Like, run a minute or so worth of cold water through an engine that's not working extra to just like lower that temperature down, get that hot exhaust without extra hot out, and kind of do its thing. I mean, these obviously are built to be able to operate at this temperature. So
Sure.
now at this point, I'm going to come in and I'm going to shut it down. So that's kind of that's it. Simple as that. Okay, so now it's shut down.
And we're on solar only.
Yeah, solar only. Now we're on inverter. At this point is when I would come over and check on if in the event we weren't able to figure out a solution and I don't have water flow. Now is when I'm like a mechanic, right? I'm like, okay, shoot, today's an impeller day, So I've done this a couple times where you get so far into this and you're like, I guess I'll check the impeller, and then you check the impeller and it's fine. And you're like, well, I'm here. It's 16 or 20 bucks for an impeller and an hour for work.
Just change it.
I'm just gonna put it. So it's not that big of a deal. Usually on the boat.
So if you're gonna tear it down, replace the impeller anyway.
That's how I feel. I just bought a bunch of extra. Like, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So what I'll do, come in here. You're gonna open this up.
So you have an extra generator down there?
Yeah, it's complicated.
So you have one over there.
Yep.
And one here.
Yeah.
Okay.
So when we were in the Bahamas, I started getting an intermittent generator issue where I would kick my generator on and it wouldn't provide power to the boat. It would run great.
Yeah.
It's fine, but it wouldn't give me power. So I started getting worried. Like, is this thing, like, is it going to go bad? I don't understand them enough. Fast forward, like 2 months later, we get into Puerto Rico, and I'm like, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna buy a generator.
Yeah.
To plug in the event that I needed it. Then what it turns out is they don't supply enough power, so the only way to get power into the bank would have two of them.
Yeah.
But then when you do that, now you have a reverse polarity from generator power, these portable generators, to the boat. And I didn't like that, so I had an electrician walk me through what we could do, and I didn't like any options. And so I'm like, you know what I don't want is I set out to buy a Honda generator. I couldn't find one, so I bought a Ryobi. Then I found this other one, and I was like, well, I'm gonna match them together, and then I can put power in the bank in case this was ever go out. And then as I thought through that, and we tried all the connections with the electrician. I was like, you know what? That's a bad idea. It's not working. I don't need it. I don't need to power my house bank. The house bank is the problem. The problem is the water maker is the only thing that consumes excessive amount of power.
Right. And it's critical for survival.
Critical. So you start going like, what's the most important thing? The most important thing is we have water.
Just plug in the water maker.
So I was like, okay, why don't we just take one of those? And then what I said is, when I get to Grenada, I'll sell the other one.
Yeah.
Because what I paid for that, I can sell for double down here.
Yeah,
or go
right.
to the Bahamas. So
like everybody else does.
But I thought, and then now, of course, I'm like, well, I'll just sell one with the boat. I'll take one in the next boat, and I'll do the exact same one.
Right. So you're gonna take that one next boat.
Yeah. So I'll take one in the next boat.
Okay.
Because you only need one, and I tried running 2 into the boat, and it just wasn't good because of the reverse polarity, which worried me. I was like, I don't like it. Let's just not do it unless I have. It just didn't make sense. So,
Got it.
what we figured out was a wire had come off inside the electronics box of the generator, and it just literally came loose.
When you say electronics box, where's that?
It's right in here. So inside of here,
Okay.
a wire had come loose.
This is the Phillips head.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'd looked like 5 times and couldn't find it. And I had a friend of mine come over and he looked. And the next day he's like, dude, I have trouble. He has the exact same boat. He goes, I've run every scenario. And I'm telling you right now, it's got to be a wire in there. Like every scenario, I looked at the book. He's like, I guarantee. So he goes, can I come over and look? And he came over. And in 2 minutes, we opened that up and he goes, I knew it. And he's like, click. And all it was is there's 5 relays in here. And so, because the day before we had troubleshooted relays, I bought new relays, I plugged in relays, we did all the troubleshooting, and it was at the bottom of the relay has like a flat flange that comes out, and then the wires obviously fit over the top of it.
Yeah,
it had just rattled down, just fallen off. Which
what did you solder it so it doesn't do that again?
No, we just fit it back on there tight. None of them are soldered or anything. Okay. So, I don't know how it happened, but now I'm like, here's what I found: is anytime there's a boat issue, go to the electrical first. Just check the electrical because things corrode, things wear out.
Water, fuel, electrical.
That's it. It's like 90% of the time, if there's an issue, it's going to be water's not coming into the boat, cooling something, or
fuel's bad, or electrical.
And go to the connectors. It's always the connectors. So I bought the really expensive.
They corrode.
Heat shrink.
Yeah, and you heat shrunk a connector on there.
Yeah. So, well, not on this because you can't.
Oh, okay.
So,
it's just not enough room.
No, not the way it's set up. You can't. Okay. So the water impeller is this back here. So the impeller there's a flat piece right there, and on the back of it is a Allen head bolt, like 8 of them.
So you want and they're accessible from this side or the other side?
You have to you have to take this out.
Okay.
And then you just get back in there. No, it's not even Allen. I think it's a regular 5/16 bolt head is what it is.
Okay.
And you take that off. Because what's happening is the water's coming in to the boat through this.
Yeah. And
it's coming up into there.
Okay.
So you're not pumped it. You could hear it tick, 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 down underneath the.
Nothing going on.
No, that one was pumping water. That's how you know it's pumping. It's tick, 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 tick. You can hear it. This is then the impeller. So it's pumping water to this, and then it's coming up into here, and then to increase the pressure to pump it in through the system, and to then pump it back out, the impeller's spinning.
Yeah.
And that impeller then puts the water up into here. It goes in the heat exchanger. So you pop that off. Man, there's a tool that they make that I would maybe consider buying. It's probably $100 or something to pull impellers. The alternative is a double needle nose plier, as careful as you can, perfectly positioned, and then you got to pull that way. It's not easy. It's not fun, and you're of course.
Sounds like I want the tool.
Hindsight, I would have bought the tool. I'm just saying, I would have bought the tool.
Okay, so color tool. Good.
So then I don't have one, but I will definitely be investing, especially because there's not an easy spot to get to. But then you pop that out.
Pretty cramped in there.
Yeah, put a new impeller on, and
I'm assuming that when you're actually working on this, you pull all these panels out, put them on your.
Yeah. I'll pull that one out, this one, and that
climb
one.
in there.
Yep, I'm like hunkered down in for sure.
Yeah.
So then, from there you just put the new one in. Super easy. Slide it in. You can like lube it up with some little of the water soluble lube. Throw it in.
Okay.
And then put the gasket back on, and then you just put the.
What's the name of your water soluble lube?
I don't remember what it's called. It's just the stuff that comes in little packets.
Okay.
And it doesn't come with the impeller kit. I know that.
Okay.
So it's not.
So it's separate.
Because you're.
Mind if I hang out a little bit?
Oh, hang out. This is your impeller, Casey. So this is your water in. This is that, we just solved the water coming in issue. Mm-hmm. So it's coming in right here, comes through, and then it goes to there, and that's your impeller. So your impeller, you have to take that brass plate off the back side of it.
It's tough to get to.
Yes, you have to pull this out, and then you have to be hunkered in there and take it off. And then you have to pull it out. There's an impeller tool, removal tool you can buy, and it's well worth the investment right there to get. I don't have one. Parts and pieces. You got your lower oil fill. There's an upper oil fill here, which is the one that you normally will use.
Okay.
That's the one I use.
Why would you use the lower ever?
I don't fully understand why that's there.
Okay. All right.
Somebody explained it to me at one point, but I don't remember what the reason.
Something to research.
Yeah. But.
So do you suck it out from there too?
No, she's
Or
pretty
you
much
do it from
everything
the
you
oil
do through the dipstick.
Dipstick. Okay,
Yeah.
so you suck out from the dipstick.
Yep, and of course, to pull it, all of these, you're gonna have oil like up high till you clean it, and then you put it back. Really clear indicators of dots.
Yeah.
You can see. So probably oil is probably right
there.
So, 250 hours if I remember right on my list.
How many quarts does it take?
Liters. Well, let's see. It's 6. Maybe 6. We usually can't. I think it's 6. You can't fit 6 into it though. You gotta fit.
What grade of diesel
5.
do you use?
15 weight 40.
Okay.
So, same stuff we use on the engines. So you can use Yanmar on the engines, but the Yanmar guys sell you the 15 weight 40. So you go in there and they're like, it doesn't matter. And then you think, well, would it be less expensive or more expensive? And what you realize is that the Yanmar is actually less expensive than 15 weight 40. And then the problem is though, when you leave a Yanmar area, you can never get it Yanmar. So what we said is like, let's get oil that we can get everywhere that the distributor says this is the right oil.
Right.
So
nice.
Oil filter, fuel filter, and of course we have a Raycor. So pretty simple, right? Oil filters, the oil filter, like there's nothing. But they look the same. So just remember when you're doing it and you're gonna do all of it,
the fuel filter.
It says on there fuel filter, oil filter.
Yeah.
This fuel filter is what they call the secondary.
Okay.
I think if I remember right. The primary is your Raycor filter, which is backed by the fuel tank.
Right. But this is a smaller smaller
micron. Yeah.
Micron,
This is 5 micron.
Okay.
And then the Raycor is a 20 micron.
Okay.
So we got your injector lines coming in here.
How often do you change the secondary?
I change them every. I think it's 250 as well. I change them.
Okay.
When I change one, I change them both. Although I want to say that the primary, I bought lots of extras and it's easy to change, and so I've changed it more because I bought so many on accident before I understood that there was this.
Yeah.
So like as I was like prepping the boat, I went and bought them, and then because I was told to get them, and then I went to the MR guys and I said,
it makes sense to change the primary often because it's the first one in line for
the
tank.
It's gonna get the dirtiest.
Yeah. Then
I went into the MR guys and the Northern Lights guys and I said, sell me everything that's consumable.
Yeah.
And then they resold me all this, so then I had double those other filters. And primary filter, the soft ones.
But it makes sense to change them twice as much.
Yeah, I was like, well, what the heck? It's my first filter. It's the first line of defense. On these engines. This is what's called a lift pump. So
for lifting the diesel.
Yep. Yeah. But don't confuse it with the pressure pump, which is back in the engine compartment. So you have fuel tank, pressure pump pumps the fuel out, which is not next to the tank. It's in the engine compartment. It pumps it out and up here. Once it gets up here, it then pumps into here. Now, this is a manual override. So when you need to, after you do a fuel change, you need to manually pump this to re-prime the system. And in order to do that, you do your change, your fuel filter changes, and then you put everything back together, and then you loosen this nut on the top of the fuel filter housing.
Okay.
You crack that. And it's a bolt that has a hole in it, and so you crack it, spin it a couple times, and what will happen is the fuel will pump up through the center of the bolt and then out the.
You'll bleed a little bit of diesel out.
And you got to pump this until you have arm pump.
Okay.
And then it'll eventually come out.
So you pump that until you got diesel coming up the bolt.
And then the way I understand this that works is because otherwise I'm like, well, how does this actually work? My understanding is that it's mechanical.
Yeah.
How it spins and pumps when the engine's running. So the other one, the pressure pump,
is electrical.
Yeah. Powered by when you prime. The primer is what. So when I'm priming before I start, which would be what you consider like your glow plug time frame, you're actually sending power to the pressure unit to pre-fill this system. Yeah. And then so the fuel's to here, and then once it starts to turn, this pumps it through into the injectors, up through the filter and into the injectors. And then of course there's a return line on all these diesels. So any fuel that doesn't get used gets returned back to the diesel tank. So, and I don't know, it's like 80% of the fuel that gets pumped through gets returned back. So it's constantly filtering extra fuel. I don't know but
keeping the fuel clean.
Keeping it super clean, which is nice. So, okay, so then in here is an air filter. It doesn't need change nearly as often, maybe every 500 hours. It also was perfectly clean when I changed it and put a new one in. So I changed it, put the new one in, it was perfectly clean.
Where's the air intake for that?
It's right here. So it's this black tube that comes out to here. It's really weird.
Where's it draw air from?
It draws air from inside the box, which is
Okay.
what you want,
Okay.
but not directly. So the hole is, I think, right there. Is there a hole right there?
Yeah.
That's the hole it draws it through, but it's
Okay.
positioned down below, and I think it's set up that way to intentionally pull the air from inside the box,
yeah,
and suck air through either this vent, so it essentially creates like a negative pressure on the entire box.
Yeah.
Sucks it through and through a hole over here, but that way you don't have any direct like water that sucks in.
Right.
So that's the way. I never like verified that, but that's the way.
And that's why that filter's so clean, because it's pretty unusual to get dirty air in here.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's kind of what I'm like. Okay, that makes sense. So I mean, obviously I haven't cleaned this thing up. It needs a little bit of cleanup, but it runs like a champ. And let's see what's new. This is new because I thought I had a fuel problem. It turned out it was the other one.
Mm-hmm.
And all it turned out was that the wire right through here had corroded. Not even corroded, actually. There was a transition from the normal gauge wire to a smaller gauge wire right here, and right there where the connection was, it had it must have been an exposed wire or something, and they fused together and it tripped the system. So what it tripped was the fuel pressure pump down there. So in my troubleshooting, I was like, I'd already bought an extra one of these. Let me just see if this is the issue. And it turned out once I replaced this and still couldn't get it to prime, I was like, okay, why would fuel not come through? And so then I went to the back and I was like, the pressure pump isn't turning on. Okay, so it's the pressure pump's the issue. So then
once again, check all the fuel.
So then I was like, why doesn't the pressure pump turn on? And I was like, oh, okay, well so then I disconnected it, touched it to the battery, and it kicked on. I'm like, okay, the pressure pump works when I give it power.
Mm-hmm.
It's not getting power. So why is it not getting power? So then I opened this box and I just started following the wire. I want to tell you I'm like a super mechanic, but after several hours of following wires and not figuring it out, I hired an electrician. He came in, troubleshooted it, and we found that he goes, I'm going to follow this wire and feel it. He goes, I bet you it burned up along the way. I go, why would it do that? He goes, that's what they do. I'm like, oh my gosh, really? That's what they do? And he's like, yeah, it'll be burned up. Somewhere there will be a connection point and it's going to be burned up. And I'm like, really? So your engine unit, serial number, model number, all that. And I think it's Lugger is the brand. And they're the ones that make the diesel.
And you can replace them separately, right? Could be one or the other.
Yeah, you can replace the back end or the front end.
Yeah.
I think they consider the power is the back end,
yeah,
the engine, and the back end is the power unit.
Right.
And so that power unit, I know people will replace those if they go bad and not have to replace the engine because you had 50% life still left on it. So Northern Lights, I think, is the power generation side of it, and it has its own serial number. But when you call Northern Lights, it's one-stop shop. They're like, what engine do you have? What power generation unit do you have? And then they'll take the Northern Lights dealers will take care of everything. So they'll give you all the consumable. That's why I went in there. So tell me all the consumables and tell me the part numbers for everything. They look it up. What do you have? Okay, great. Here, you need this, this, and this.
And where are the best dealers you found?
We bought everything in Florida, but they're
like St. Petersburg, Miami, Fort Lauderdale.
Fort Lauderdale.
Fort
They're just south of Fort Lauderdale.
Okay.
They're next to Just Cats.
Yep.
In that little marina.
Okay.
But yeah, they were great. They hooked us up. Right next to them is Yanmar.
Sounds like you make a pilgrimage there every few.
Yeah, I mean, I went and bought $4,000 worth of extras because I was like, I was told, like, dude, you're never gonna find anything. Turns out, yeah, you can get it anywhere. Like, there's a lot of places I can get all that stuff. Puerto Rico is obviously a major hub. BVI's has everything I needed. I went into BVI's and I went into the Yanmar and Northern Lights dealer. They were awesome, like genius level guys that can work on these things if you need them to. But once again, got some more consumable parts.
Yeah.
Got some relays, some things that I knew. Like once you're out here, you realize there's certain things that everybody in the forums say go bad, and then you're like, why would I for $15 worth of a relay? Why would I lose my generator for a month potentially? When I could just buy a little $15 relay that I know is consumable,
right?
And will at some point potentially
fail
based on what everybody says.
So, are you leaving all the spares for this on the boat?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, a bunch of spare everything on it.
Where is that?
It's all in the buildings.
Okay.
And then we have obviously get your breaker there. So if you are going to
shut that off.
If you do have a problem, check that as well. Oh, that's it.
Yeah.
the
Oh, the breaker could kick off.
The way that I knew that I had a problem is when I would try to kick power on from this thing. I would turn everything on and I'd flip my switches in there, set generator and transfer, and then I would get no power.
Nothing.
Wait, why is it running but getting no power? Not that switch, but this right back here. If you see where my finger is, there's a switch. That's a breaker.
Okay.
That's the breaker from essentially the electronics component of the unit, and that is telling you like, hey, there's a problem. I'm going to shut off. And what the problem was is it was trying to start and run, but the pressure, it wasn't getting fuel, and so it was sensing there was a problem, and it would shut down. It would shut down the power side.
Right.
It was like, nope, sorry, it's not gonna work. And so it would trip, and so that's how I started to know there was a problem. So anytime you see some acts kind of weird, just know you have a problem. You got to figure out what that problem might be. It's, in this case, the wire that comes off.
And if your generator is going to be down for a day or two or longer, your options are, power your water maker from your spare generator, run your solar, minimize consumption, and you're going to be okay.
I've only ran that backup generator one time though.
Okay.
I've had it for 6 or 7 months.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, really, for the most part, what we do, if that was the case, because we have had this go down, obviously, electrical things, the small stuff that's happened. It's really simple. Like, no more ice. You guys don't get ice. Or the other thing I did when we were a little bit more real, I'm like, no more ice, and our drink fridge, that's our, that has extra drinks that we don't really need, we would shut it off. Yeah. Because I'm like, we don't need drinks, we don't need to keep the egg.
Don't have to have cold.
Yeah. So anything where if it's going to be cloudy and I'm like, oh, we're going to shut down 1 or 2 power sources. Yeah. And then we can still run that an hour a day. Yeah. It's not a problem. What we maybe wouldn't do is we maybe would do a wash down that day or something. Yeah. But or I pull the generator out and run. Yeah. So, which is good anyway, just to continually run fuel through that. That's stable in it, but still. So that's kind of the generator. It's all
right, thanks for the deep dive.
Yeah, it's just good to know all the components, right? Like these are the things I didn't know.
Yeah, you did the little ones down there.
Yeah, I could fit 4 of them in there, and I try to keep the front of the generator open.
Yep.
Just because
that's where the air comes in. Yeah.
So I try not to have anything in there. This is your extra water tank. Just a full water tank. I don't always keep it full. It's because it's heavy. I'm not racing, but I'm always racing.
Well, and you're not going to cross the Pacific anytime soon, so
yeah,
you can always make more water.
And then the valve, since we're up here, you can pop the top off of this and put water in there. Mm-hmm. The other option is here. We have it set up this way. If I'm making water, I have the water line comes in right here. Water goes to this one and this one. So that's filling this tank and this tank. So I fill them together, I use them together. If I'm making water, these get filled equally. If I'm using water, they get used equally because they have both valves open. So that way, I treat this like it's one tank.
One tank, yeah.
Then if I want to fill that one, I just need to turn this in line and fill that, and if not, close it, and then I can shut it off.
Okay, so the way it is, it's filling these 2 tanks, turn it, and it's filling that tank.
Yep. Okay. So the only reason I use that one is to keep the water fresh, and I just probably every couple of weeks I fill it up and then I use it. And a lot of times, sometimes
So how do you pull the water from this tank and not this one?
I can show you. It's behind the. Essentially, the water is all back here, but I'll go through and I can show you how that works. So
cool.
There's 3 valves that pull it. So, and then, but as far as water goes, this is the water maker. So kind of jump into that. So if you're starting at the upstream side of how we're creating water, which would be kind of step 1, if you will, you got water. Water comes in from inside of here. So there's a through hole on the side down here. That's been retroed. Okay. So it used to be, this sounds bad, but it used to be toilet water in. Remember, it's toilet water in. So it's salt water in.
So did you move that intake somewhere else?
No, because this was the toilet where I'm sitting right now.
Oh, okay. All right. So it's for that toilet which you're not using.
Yep. Okay. So you had toilet water in. Now it's now that's a water line that comes in. Comes up through a filter that's right here in the sink. I just moved the filter, so it's really easy now. You can just turn it and no, you don't make saltwater mess or anything. And I'll just show you. So essentially, come down in here. I right now have the saltwater in open, but my filter is up above the saltwater in. And so although I might get a little water flow over the edge, barely any, there's a bilge pump down there, so it doesn't matter. This is the filter. So all you do is it's just metal.
Yeah.
Dump it out, and all you're just getting that, right? You're just getting your pieces of grass through it.
Yeah.
That's all that is. So, I mean, you can clean it if you want, but the minute you do anything again, you're just getting salt, nasty, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, like, don't get me wrong, this isn't exactly the cleanest water in this area of the world, right here, or this area.
It's gross.
So you put that in there. I actually should get another one of these. It's been on my list of things. Just haven't been able to find one that's the right size, but. So you just take that, put it back on there, and remember, this is just your primary,
Yeah, it's straining out seaweed.
Seaweed, yeah. So twist that back on. Okay, so now it's gonna come through, comes up. This is your filter. So to give you perspective on this filter, this is a brand new filter yesterday. So I change it, depending on how much I'm running it, about once every 2 weeks.
Oh, very often.
So people are like, why do you change it so often? A lot of people will take these out, throw them behind the boat on a rope, drag them, rinse them with salt water, and then put them back in.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how they'll clean them out. I mean, to be honest, I've been paying $20 a filter, so they are expensive,
Mm-hmm.
right? So there is some value to doing that. I'm also like, it's my drinking water. Let's just have it clean, So I've just resorted to just putting new ones in. But
$40 a month.
Yeah, I mean, and depending on where you're at, like if I was up in Beckway or Union, I'd run a month or 2 on this filter. No big deal. Like I feel 100% confident in it. If I'm here,
Yuck.
Maybe out there 2 weeks, maybe back in here a little further, it'd be a week. So I just look at it and I also smell it. So if it smells gross, I'm like, I don't like the smell. And you'll smell it when you turn on it. It'll have a little bit. Put it down here.
Nope, I got it.
Okay, so now operations. Water comes in, goes through the filter, goes through the impeller.
Let's hit 40 if you want.
Thank you.
Once it goes through this impeller, same thing as that other impeller, just smaller, right? Goes through the impeller, and then it pushes in here to the membranes. Goes through the 2 membranes, removes the salt, and then it pumps back out, and it comes out here in this white hose.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. When it's coming out here in this white hose, that's where you would test it and check your parts per million as long as it's under 500. I mean, some people have different criteria, but under 500 is drinkable water, parts per million on a TDS. So we check it for being under 5. Yeah. Casey, will you hit the fan button? Actually, never mind. It'll be too loud in here. Don't worry about it. I think this is a 500 or 1,000 hour oil change. This oil here. My hands are sweaty. I can't.
Okay.
But
So there's your fill cap.
oil, yeah. Sorry. So, I mean, that's like perfect. I mean, look, it's just shiny.
Yeah, it's still clean.
Clean. Still engine's pretty bomber though. So you turn it on, it pumps it through the pre-filter, then it pumps it through this particle filter, which is a 20 micron filter, and then it goes through the membranes, comes back out, you got fresh water. Now, in order to get, when originally you turn it on, it's going to come up the green line, because that's your, oh gosh, well, I'm blanking on the term of it. That is your,
Brine?
thank you, brine. This is your brine water. It won't come out here if this valve is switched to a tank, because there's a manual valve here that is either sink or tank. So there's a little silly little indicator here.
Okay, good.
It just reminds you, like, one way goes into the sink, the other way goes in the tank.
Mm-hmm.
So our shutdown process is that you always turn it back to sink. So when I turn this on, we get water out of here. So what it'll look like is turn it on. So you saw that dropped because I opened that up and I put air in the system. So now it'll slowly fill back up. And you can
can see we're in obviously a bay with stuff in here. You're getting particles. That's just the nature of where we're at. And also now you got brine water, but right now we're not making it. This is just straight salt water. It's not brine because we're not actually squeezing the salt out of it. In order to do that, you can smell it. Like I can smell it right now. It's a little heavy, and that's simply because we're in water that's kind of not ideal, right? I was really worried about it until I talked to everybody else that like spent time in the U.S. in a lot of the bays, and they're like, "Oh, bro, you can make fresh water a nasty water." So I'm like, "Okay," but I was always hesitant. And they said, "Don't worry about it." But it eventually clears out. You got good water. Now you're gonna slowly turn the pressure up, which is about 8 turns. Doesn't do much about till 4, and then you start to see it rise. And then I just slowly turn it up. Over about 15 to 30 seconds, I slowly get it up to pressure, just to keep the pressure off the membranes and seals and all that. You're just slowly watching it come up to here. Once it gets up to pressure, you're going to see the gauge here will indicate how much water you're making, gallons per minute. So 35, 37 gallons a minute is what this makes. You can see I'm a little high, almost at 40. I'm dead in line there, it's fine. I don't try to push it. I'd rather have a little bit less pressure and a little bit less gallons per minute. But I've now increased the pressure, which turns the water and pushes it through the membranes to start squeezing the salt out of it, if you will. And the byproduct is that you get good drinkable water right here. At this point, I'll let this run for 30 seconds or a minute to just clear out, because these always have extra briny salt water in them. So I'll always let this run for a while to get that extra brine water out to the point where we're getting fresh, raw water in. So I don't want to be making drinkable water out of the water that was left in the system.
Yeah.
And so 30 seconds to a minute of that.
Enough to clear out
And then I just come over here and remember you're going to turn this valve so that it's pointing that towards the tank. And you just come in here and turn it. You can see that'll drop for a second. And now we're taking this water and we're pushing it into the tanks. So now I'm filling at 37 gallons a minute. Okay, so now you're done filling water. You know, you realize you're full, everything's good.
How do you know when you're full?
What's that?
How do you know when you're full?
You just look in the tank, so visually, yeah. So, and you can just open that compartment and you can see the water level as well. So, you know, we just run it for an hour a day, usually it's fine, but we'll check it. We're done. Okay, now I'm gonna come in here. I'm gonna slowly, while water is still being pushed into the tank, I'm gonna slowly just turn this down. And what will happen is, as this drops, water stops going to the tank. And now there's not enough pressure to push it through here, so there's no water going in the tank right now anyway. I'm just taking the pressure off. Now I've got extra briny water in the system, so I'm gonna let this system run and get all the way to just salt water, not brine water, right? So I'm gonna let this run until these are empty. So same thing, 30 seconds to a minute, just kind of let it undo its, you know, get all the extra salty water out of here. While this is going on, there's no pressure on this line because there's no water being pressed through because we don't have pressure on the gauge. So I'm just gonna turn this back to sink. So the next time I turn it on, it comes back out here. Run this for its 30 seconds. At this point, I'll shut it off.
There you go.
Good to go. Now, it has an automatic back flush device right here with a timer. It blinks. The number of blinks in a row is how many days until it back flushes. It's set up so that if you were away from the boat, it's going to do an automatic backflush off of the DC battery bank.
Okay.
So it just automatically just takes water out of the tank and pushes it back through.
Okay.
And it just reverse pushes the water through to clean it. This is the filter for that. Of course, it's clean water being pushed through.
What motor does that?
So I don't fully understand how it does it because I've never heard it kick on.
Oh,
So I'm like, I don't know, but I've been on the boat, so I haven't had to worry about it.
okay.
So I'm like, he explained it to me, and I'm like,
Can you manually backflush?
so here's the thing. I think it's this that does it. I just had this conversation with the electrician. I asked him, I said, can you help me understand how this works? And he said, oh, it's DC system. It's this little pump right here. It just reverse pushes it through. You'll probably never have it hear it turn on because it's a small little pump. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah, it's so quiet you might not ever hear it.
You never even know what happens. So I'm like, okay, but the days here that it has a countdown tell me how often until it's going to go. But because we're running it constantly, I haven't worried. We haven't left the boat. So, and even when
man dealers, where do you get your parts? And
they're awesome. Just online. They'll just send it. Yeah. So I haven't had to get parts for it, but I did reach out to them about wiring this to see if there's any restrictions. And they said these Rainman units were designed to run off of 2,000 watt portable generators. That's how these were originally designed.
Oh.
So they're like, yes, of course you can wire it and plug it in and run. That's how these were originally designed.
Wow.
To be set up. So, okay, so let's just say that you're like, I want to backflush the system and I'm not going to rely on this to do the backflush. What I do is I have this hooked up right here. There's a valve down below. It's just either on or off, connected to the intake, the raw water in. You take that valve, you turn it to be in line with this, which just says, hey, pull water from here. I then use this, I fill up the sink. And then the only thing you got to remember is as soon as you turn this system on, you're going to shoot brine water out. So then you have to put this down here to go into the shower drain, right? Because you don't want brine water going back in if you're going to do a freshwater rinse on the system.
Yeah.
And then you turn it on with this full and it sucks the water out of the sink, sucks fresh water back into the system. Now, don't turn this on when you're doing that up to full pressure. You don't need it. It senses how much pressure there is based on the total dissolved liquids or the total dissolved solids that are inside of the water. So when you do that, you can turn this like twice and you'll get your 40 gallons a minute out the end because there's nothing for it to compress and filter out. It recognizes, hey, this is fresh water. I don't need to be at, whatever that pressure is. I don't need to be at 750 PSI. I only need to be at 100 PSI to get the same flow rate of water out the end because I'm not compressing solids through my filters. Right. So that's the mistake people I read online have made is they'll backflush it and they'll crank it up and they'll blow the thing up because it's way too much pressure because you're not pushing anything through it. So it's literally, and you'll see, you're like 1, 2, oh, geez, 37. You're like, oh, of course I am because I'm pulling fresh water through a system that's trying to.
Watching that gauge.
Yep. So you're just watching this and then this is relative to this. So if there was a discrepancy, if you get to green and this doesn't work, you have a problem. Yeah. If you hear this oscillate like, and it's essentially cavitating, it's the same thing. The impeller is not getting enough water. You can feel it. If it gets warm, you're like, oh, I'm sucking in sargassum. Yeah. So when I run the system, I leave this open exclusively. I listen all the time for it, and I make sure that it's not pulling or it's not getting plugged up or pulling something through. And then I run it usually, I don't usually run it underway unless it's calm, just because as the boat's coming up and out, that intake will pop out of the water. Oh. And so we just run it when it's calm. I mean, it's not really an issue, but it's just nicer when it's calm. And we haven't been in a position where that's an issue, but it's a lot easier to just be like, I run it when it's calm or when we're at anchor. Or like, for instance, I'll run it in the lee of an island. Okay, so position 1 runs off the inverter or off the generator. Position 0 shuts it off. Position 2 runs it off the portable generator that's behind me. Just take it out because obviously that puts out carbon monoxide exhaust because it's a gasoline generator. So you cannot run this off of shore power. So it's not designed to be run off of shore power with the idea that if you're on shore power, you're on a dock. You should have drinkable water. Right. If you don't have drinkable water, turn off your shore power inside. Yeah. Tell the boat, I don't want shore power. I'm either going to run off inverter or generator and then turn this on. Yeah. I don't want to run this inside of a marina, personally.
Yeah, too much
too much poopy water. That's not what I want.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to run this inside of there. I'm going to go for the dock water. And so far, everywhere we've been has had potable drinking water, except for the DR. It was the only place they said no. So we bought water because it was gross. I didn't want to make water. So we just bought water. So, and they sold it in 5-gallon jugs for $3. So it's worth it. So that's that. There is a breaker here, so if you ever needed to, you can kick power off. This was all done by an electrician. So I don't do major wiring projects or things like this if I don't have to.
Same for a house.
Yeah, like I'll change an outlet and do that kind of stuff, but if I'm running major wire,
I stay away from breaker boxes.
Yeah, not my jam. So my weakness would be electrical. That's not where I'm gonna thrive. So
me too.
So yeah, that's the system there. You got some extra hoses, lots of extra room. I mean,
plenty of space to work on it.
And honestly, I don't jump in here usually. So I know I'm gonna be in here right now. I'm gonna do this. I just come over to the side. Okay. So the way this works is this is your like water manifold system. So all of these are water in, water in, water in, and then it comes. All of them feed into here. This comes down and around and loops into here. Okay. So this is your port tank. This is your it says water tank, port water tank. I don't think that is. I think this is port. Oh, I think I switched them because it didn't make sense to me. This is your aft starboard, and this is your forward starboard. So I switched these two, forget the tag, because I wanted this one's on the left.
Yeah.
These two are on the right. You know, port, starboard. This one just happens to be aft. So it's the rear tank. This is the forward tank. Just made a lot more sense to me. So what I do is these two are always on together because I fill them together. Always fill them together. They're always on together. So if I were to run out of water here, I just shut this off so that you can't, because otherwise it'll suck air, and I just turn that on. And now I can pull from the port. Vice versa, go back like this. Now, water comes into here, into the water pump through a filter, goes into the pump. The pump pushes it into this pressure tank. This pressure tank is just an on-demand, no power to it. It's air pressure. So at the top, if you were to look up here, it has like a bicycle cap that affects the air pressure on it. It comes stock at like, I don't know if it's, what was it say on there, 125 psi. So all it does is once the pressure drops inside the system, it automatically will tell the pump, or the pump will know because they're set at the same pressure. The pump will kick on to fill it back up. So it just, all it does is smooth it out to where water pressure is delivered a little bit more smooth. It's not perfectly smooth, but what will happen is if you run out of water up here in these tanks, and then you refill them and then turn it back on, this will still suck air, and it has a hard time bleeding the air out. So the easiest thing to do is that this is your water supply to the whole boat right here. This is a drain line that goes into the bilge down here. So if you're like, man, I got water in and this thing just won't, it runs and runs and runs. It won't shut off because it's pumping air. Just come over here and just open this. 3 seconds, close it for 3 seconds. Open it for 3 seconds, close it for 3 seconds. That pretty much solves it every time. That it just needs to flow enough water that it sucks the air out of these little lines right here. It's really simple. So it's just that. Click, 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 click twice. I have successfully. Yes, I have the one that broke. But you could show her what it looks like. But it's underneath the table. There's a bag on top of it underneath the table. But it's broken, so we're gonna throw it away. I have successfully done it where I just go down to the sink downstairs and I just open it up to let it bleed to a low point, and sometimes that works as well. Not always do you have to do this, but every once in a while you do.
That's easy.
You just get used to listening. Like here's the sound. The sound is gonna make. Usually it's delayed. Water's on. 5 seconds later, as the water pressure kicks on, fills back up. It's going to constantly do that. Just keep a listen, because when the pad's back on, if you hear that thing pumping, that means it's pumping without.
So I would get.
It shouldn't stay on.
It's down.
Yeah.
Now the good news is it's not designed to burn up. It's designed. It's not a rotary or vane style pump. It's like a 4-chamber piston style pump. It's designed to pump dry. So so these pumps are dry
So you
pumps.
can't burn it out by running it dry.
Is what they say. I just tend to think like that doesn't make a lot of sense, but that's just what they say. So
Yeah.
probably true. I would say
Well,
they are a consumable item. So I
Mhm.
would say I've gone through a couple of them. First one burned up right off the bat. And the second one I bought off the shelf brand new didn't work. So I think somebody didn't work and returned it. So the trick is when you're buying marine parts, move the first one off the shelf and reach to the back of the shelf and
Reach to
grab
the
it
back.
and put it back.
We do that with everything.
Yeah. So that's kind of just a thing to consider.
So and the whole thing's consumable. You just pull it out.
Yeah, they do have replacement kits for them. So like I did take one apart and I was like,
Yeah.
oh, I could see I could replace it. I just didn't because I was like, oh, I didn't have the kit. And I
Right.
already bought an extra. So I was like, well, I'm not going to salvage one. I'm just put a new one in. So I just put a new one in.
Yeah.
So
How much is it?
370 a month.
Okay. Well, not crazy.
Yeah, not too crazy.
If you're only doing it once a year,
Then
it's
you got
okay.
an accumulator tank next to it. Those shouldn't go bad, but I did buy an extra one and I did end up using it in the process of troubleshooting to figure out is it the pump or is it the accumulator tank? So I just ended up putting 2 new of both.
Great.
So then,
No, we don't.
as a backup,
On it, but we just didn't stock up on tons of shampoo.
speaking of water, in the event that, so obviously we have this line right here, and this is one of those hoses that's well worth. It's in gold to me. Down here is a pump, water pump. It's pretty much almost the exact same pump you would use inside, but slightly different. We use that, so this is plumbed to where water plumbs to it, and then this just enhances the pressure that comes out here, so that we get more pressure for washdown.
Yeah.
So that's just the thing we gotta. Yeah. Just know that pump is rated at 1 gallon per minute more than the pump here, so this will drain the line in between them, and we'll have to refill. And I know that, but I just never changed it. I was like, So what will happen is if you're using too much water, like full blown, then it will be awesome pressure, and then all of a sudden you'll be like,
It'll drop off. Yeah.
And it's like it's refilling the line.
Yeah. So just turn this down.
Turn it down a little bit.
Yeah.
And that's why I got this style. Is so that you can adjust.
Regulate it.
Yeah, you can adjust your water flow because sometimes you don't. You just need a little bit, right?
Just
Like
a little bit. Yeah.
kind of doing like a little spray down or something, especially up in this area, or you can open it up. But this is restricted enough that it can pretty much keep up all the time. So here's your special device for plugging for your through holes.
Yeah. Yeah.
For
Special
cleaning
device. Yeah.
So it's custom boat device. So
Available at any
dive-
drugstore.
Yeah, to dive under. Okay, so that's water in. Let's see here. Water. I do have under the sink.
Finding bread and stuff from
This 3M HF40
Okay, I was gonna
is
say,
another
there's no
water
bread and
filtration
stuff,
filter.
so you'll be making it.
So these are just 3M. You can get these anywhere,
For the sink
but
alone.
it's just for the sink.
Yeah.
Like I think is rated at like. Our water lines are now the washing machine water lines. So that's pretty straightforward. Just hot to hot, cold to cold. And then gray water on this one's really easy, right? Because it's just right there. So, and then we'll go through kind of this. Let's just kind of go through each thing here. Okay, so you got your. This is gonna be your transducer up front here. So this is gonna be water speed, current, all that stuff. It does have a little paddle wheel on it, so you do need to clean that off. This is the gap. So I paid and had that put in there, and it got all wired in. I've actually never even set up the system to be able to read if I have a current based on I never even once I did it, I was like, cool, I did it, but I never even set up to be like, all right, no, now what is the what is my current? I didn't set the electronics up there to be able to tell me a current. So I could, other people could. I asked the previous buyer, what's the one thing you don't have on the boat that you would want? He's like, a transducer that tells me how much my current is.
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh, that's a good idea, because then it knows like, hey, we're going this fast, and
So it can calculate your actual speed in the water.
So it can be done. I just didn't set it up.
Oh.
So I'm not so much into the details on that, obviously electronic side. I'm just like,
So it's wired up to the
so it's all
top
wired.
water,
It has it, paid to have it installed, all the things. I just never did it.
but you never configured it.
Mm-mm.
Okay.
So I just need
So I just need the
configure
instructions and I can
how to
follow
do
that.
it. Yeah,
Okay.
and I have them, and I'm like,
Yeah.
it's never really what I realized. I'm like, well, here's what I know is if I'm going through a spot, I'm going slower than what I think I should be going, then I must have a current.
Yes.
And and it's really easy.
Which
If
is
it's
what you do
between
on a
two
cheap boat.
islands. I probably have a current.
Right.
So I really have never got to a point where I'm like, I really need to know what the current is.
Yeah.
So that hasn't been an issue.
Okay.
But everything else is has indicators. So that's the air conditioning, salt water in,
Mm-hmm.
and then you have toilet salt water in.
Mm-hmm.
So one thing is like at least once a month come work all the valves just to make sure that they work and that they don't get frozen in an open or closed position.
Mhm.
That's been a key takeaway for me.
Okay.
Of course, aircon. The only way to cool the air conditioner is to have salt water be pumped through it.
Right.
And then probably every 6 months or a year, you can run. From that point, you can hook up, put a bucket down there and hook up a just a pump to pump water through the whole system, and then you'll have you can pump barnacle buster through it. It'll just, if it has barnacles or anything growing in there, but it'll pump all the way through the whole system, and then you take the outgoing hose or the outgoing line, you just put a hose on it and pump it back into the bucket and just recirculate barnacle buster. Do it for like 20 minutes, and I just do it on a bilge pump. I just take a bilge pump, hook it to a hose, and then repump. They have some cool devices where a bucket with a pump built in it. If I could find one, I'd buy it because it'd be way easier.
Mm-hmm.
But you do that, and then you'll get all the barnacles will end up in the filter, your actual,
And then change your filter.
yeah, your actual AC unit filter. You just
Mm-hmm.
pull the bucket out, or pull that filter out, dump out all the barnacles, and then you're back in operation. And you'll know if for some reason it gets too far like clogged, or whether that clogs it, or if you have something else clog it, because you're going to get a high temperature, low flow setting flashing. So it'll, what does it say? Like 0 something 0.
And so the recommendation is annual.
I think it was annual is what it
Mhm.
said, or I think it was annual. All I know is that if you get a flow issue, you either have something clogging it. If you get that error code and it's getting hot, it'll shut down. You either have a flow issue because something's clogging, like sargassum, or you might have barnacles that are starting to build up. It's just
Good thing to do just before the summer.
So we did it maybe a month ago.
Mm-hmm.
We turned one of these on, the other one on, and I was like, why is it not keeping up? And then it was like triggered alarm. I'm like,
Mm.
So I went in there and I barnacle busted it for 30 minutes, and then sure enough, I had a bunch of barnacles, dumped them all out, kicked them
Mhm.
back on. and good to
Perfect.
go. So I'm like, oh, well, that was easy. Figured
Mhm.
out that was a problem. But I hadn't done it up to that point because I didn't know. You're kind of
Mhm.
learning. Like, I knew it was a thing, right? And I had barnacle buster on board because I knew it was a thing I needed to do.
Mm-hmm.
Just hadn't done it. So probably once a year. But also, I'm like, as we went on, I started to be like, I'm gonna run my generator and AC more often, just to turn them on, just to run them. So
Mhm.
that as you started realizing like the things that fail or things that don't work, like for instance, all the pumps in that where that water, where the water maker is, the shower drain, the bilge on there. I went to go do all my clean out, back flush my
Mhm.
water maker and put a bunch of water in, and it wouldn't work. I'm like, what the heck? Well, because they sit there and never get used, they dry up. So I had to go spend $1,000 on new pumps and everything to just get the bilge done, even though it's a small one, and to get the shower pump out all redone because those went bad because they never get used. So now I'm like, oh yeah, I need to dump water in there more often and just pump it through, just so that everything runs.
It's wet.
And I
Yeah.
rewired it. So it's just stuff like that.
So like every week, throw some water
Yeah,
on the
maybe
floor.
once a month, like
Okay.
on something like that. But yeah, something, right? Like
Yeah.
I have my schedule of like when I change which of the filters I change,
Mhm.
which valves that I work on what side of the boat, and I just was not doing the front. And so then I had to. So the price I paid for not doing that was I had to buy all new pumps down here.
Yeah.
Not here or not in one of the cheaper islands or
Yes.
in the expensive islands.
Yeah.
Like, oh, man. So just work the stuff because it wants to be used. That's like my lesson on this is like boats just want to be operating.
Yeah.
They want to be floating. They want to have water in them. They want all that. So that's what I took away. So I'll show you though. On that note, based on the assumption that this may or may not be the right side to do it. I might have to go over that side. All right. Well, so this one will be easy because it hasn't really been used. So it hasn't had any. We haven't used this toilet since because I just reinstalled it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So say that you're like, I want to change out my filter on my toilets. just to make sure that they're clean, which this would be a great example because we haven't done anything with this one. This will be interesting. So you're going to turn off your inlet, which is what pulls the salt water in. Salt water gets pulled in here, goes through a filter, then goes into a pump, then pushes back out and puts salt water in the toilet. So I shut off my my inlet. Oh, here, I'm going to bump over it.
Okay.
This will be good because this one hasn't been used since we've been on the boat. So we'll see if we're able to open up the filter on it. So I can't even open that one. So I'll have to get a rag and do it. But you can see it's clean, but we'll come back to it because it's obviously not being used, right? So we'll get a rag. Let's get a rag out of my work room. Open that thing up. But these are tight. Like no matter what, I'll go to the next one. I'll just show it to you. All of these are very tight. Oh, this is such a pain, by the way. Just how the dirt collects down here. So I'll show you this one, then we'll come back and do that one. So like toilet, salt water, right? So I'm gonna actually I have to.
Why is it wet?
Because anytime you change these, they're wet. Because all the water, like right now, if I change my air con, like I pop this off, any one of these, the water drains into here. That's why the water.
Okay.
These are gonna always be wet because if you service these filters regularly,
It'll be wet.
they're gonna be wet. So what I do is usually, because they get gross, is I'll do this and then I spray water in them. Because otherwise they just get gross. Like if you're constantly putting the dirtiest water in that spot right there, it will drain into your bilge, but then it just gets gross. And so it's like, okay, well then I spray it. I don't ever dry it because it doesn't necessarily need to dry. I just spray it out and then let it dry out. But yeah, that's what these are designed for, is to catch and then drop that into the bilge. So, but I have to shut off all the valves to do it. So let's start over on this side. Just so you can, let me get a rag real quick so I can Yeah, so then every once in a while, like for me, it's about once a month. What I do is I come in and I will then spray all of this all around just to get whatever's drained from that. I mean, even here, like you can see there's standing water here. The ACs condensate and drain into here. So you're always going to have water right here if you run your ACs. Always right here. No, always sit right here. You could take a squeegee or something and pull it down, but you're always going to have it. Then you also have that water, which is AC system drain water. So that just gets the particles that go into the AC unit. It's just your bleeder valve.
Yeah.
And so
Just like a house.
Yeah. So it's the same concept. So
Try to open that one up.
yeah, it'll be interesting to see if this thing can open / making sure that the pump works and everything. Oh, yeah, I'll have to work on that one. It's not the only one. There's some of them are just hard to take off, but I'll have to mess with that one. So
Is there a tool?
no, unfortunately. I wish there was. This is the one next
The
to it.
oil change wrench might do it.
Maybe.
You have enough room for a lever in there.
Yep. So, like, see, this one right here, and this is good because I haven't changed any of these, right? So this is the shower drain one. So all you would do is you'd pop that off.
Yeah.
This is that shower drain. So this is going to be just whatever water's been sitting in that shower drain from when we wash or whatever, right? So now we've opened that up. It drains, goes into the bilge. Bilge kicks on and says, I got a little bit of water. Let's get that water out of there. And there's nothing you can do. That water's going in. You're not. I mean, honestly, I don't understand why they don't have a different setup for this stuff. Like, there could be a way better. Like, you could have a drain pan here with a valve right here.
Yeah.
That at the bottom, you're like, okay, I do all my thing, and now I open this up, and then that pumps the water out the bottom. So you never put it in a bilge. It pumps it into this own little separate container. Why they don't? These are just weird. Like, what? That's the one thing you're gonna find is that
They build these boats.
they don't build them for maintenance.
They build them for the speed of how fast they can build them,
Yeah.
and to keep the build costs down for the charter companies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there you go.
There you go. It's not bad.
No, super clean. Hasn't been used.
So you had to take the vacuum off it.
Yeah. Yeah, that one needed a little bit. Because I mean, that thing's in great shape. It's brand new.
Yeah.
So that's that. So then, of course, the trick always is once you're done maintaining something, you come back over, open it up. Now that toilet's operating, that one will be one that we regularly check. But we haven't had a toilet here since we got on the boat. So we took it out, and then my daughter said she wanted, so that's why I just put it back. So that's that.
And it has a macerator.
Yep. Yeah, brand new macerator, ready to go. Let's go. Let's do salt. Let's do aircon real quick.
Can we operate the toilet?
Yeah.
Just to make sure.
Yep.
You tested everything?
So full. Oh, hold on. Hold on. Not fully connected.
Ah.
So I had it temporarily connected until. So because I just put it back, I did this while Casey was on the boat. I taught Casey a lot of this stuff. What I showed him was, I said, you never fully connect the wires until you've water tested the product. So I said, you fill it with water, let it sit. So if you were to look at these wires, one side has been heat shrunk tight. The other side is just set in there, with the idea that if for some reason it leaked, I don't want to have to undo and cut all the wires. I just take the macerator side, pop it out, take the whole thing out, fix it. So now, just gonna pump the water out. You can hear it. So that's going into the tank. So macerator pumps it out and then fill it back up.
Okay.
So now I'll just leave a little bit in there. So that's why. So now I can heat shrink it essentially and put it back on. But all new, good to go. Brand new macerator.
Sweet.
Okay, so now you got your aircon. So now aircon is in the worst place possible. It's
Of course.
all the way down in here at an angle. So now I'm gonna open this up, and this will be good. We've been running the crap out of the ACs, so this will be probably. I mean, my guess is gonna be dirty. You'll just kind of learn that. Boat life is
tight.
Yeah, it's off, but the actual filter stayed on. So check this out.
Oh.
There you go.
Okay.
So not bad,
Yeah.
but it had something in there, which is. You know what I do try to do is when we get stuff in there like that, I just try to pick it up and take it out.
Yeah.
Because it makes sense. So you can see it's a little. So now this is where I'll take it and bring it into here.
But I actually liked that it sucked a big chunk in there instead of clogging.
Yeah. These filters are good, so then I'll just clean this out. Oops.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the worst thing I could think of through here is walk through here and then not know that those are up and step and fall. Like, that's like been my biggest fear.
Yeah, right.
Somebody snapping their tip fit.
Right, exactly.
Okay, so just make sure on these that the O-ring easily falls out. So just make sure,
it's in there.
Yeah. And then of course this thing's kind of at an angle, so it's a little bit. You gotta just be a little bit careful about how you put this in. So I'll put it in like all the way flat first.
Yeah.
And then scoot it over. And then usually you have to angle it. There's a little bit of play in these, but you want it pretty tight. These because you want to be able to twist it off, but you can get it over the lip. And then once it's over the lip, like what I've learned on all these, just don't force anything. If it doesn't feel like it's going to go in there right, just be
Don't
Be
tighten
patient.
it. It should tighten easily.
Yeah.
Right?
And then I go.
Shouldn't have to force it.
Then I always go to the left, so it's until it clicks.
Mm.
Once it clicks, then I know I'm straight, and then
Just hand tight.
hand tight. But it's, surprisingly, they go to a stopping point, and the hand tight is like it's tight. Like
Mm-hmm.
you gotta put some oomph into it, right? And usually you'll cut your finger because that's what happens.
Oh, geez.
I know. It's just the way that those are the clamps are set up. Like every time I cut my finger in the same spot, all the time on these. Anytime I do these. Okay, so then once that's done, you turn it back on.
There you go.
Fills up, and then of course at that point I'm gonna just watch. So now you got water in there, and I don't get too particular. Like, okay, the thing's not leaking, but if it did happen to have a small leak, what will happen is over the next 4 or 5 hours, like once an hour, I'll hear the bilge pump go off. Now, it's automatically going to go off regardless right now. So like while we're here, you're going to hear it go off because I put water in there and it slowly makes its way in. And kicks in. But by the end of the day today, that bilge pump should not operate. If it does, which it's happened many times, I come back and I usually am like a half turn shy of being sealed. Not as much on these aircon filters, more on these Jabsco ones. Those Jabsco ones, sometimes they're a little bit harder. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, for the toilet. Now the Jabsco for the shower just drains the shower pan, so it's really simple. So same concept, which I just showed you. Obviously, the shower one was clean, but ultimately the shower, it sits in the shower pan. You push the button, and it pulls it through that filter and then pumps it out. So it pre-filters your gray shower water. So you're going to get hair and they get gross. So those ones are like, if there was one that has to get changed because it clogs up, it's the showers. Like the shower, like I can go a week, but like you really do once a week just want to do the shower filter. You'll notice if it's not working right, you'll go to hit the button and it'll be too long. It'll sound a little bit different. And it's easy. You just get down there, pop that out just like I just did, and you'll just have hair. You know, especially on this side with even me nowadays, but with my wife and my daughter, it's a lot of hair.
Yeah.
And so that just gets clogged up with hair. You take it, super easy. I take the hair, throw it in the trash, rinse, same thing, rinse it in the sink, call it good. Really that's it. They come out, they clean up easy. Those little metal filters clean up easy.
Have you ever thought about putting a hair mat, like you can buy them for a house, where it's
really?
Your wife and daughter stand on a mat, collects all the hair before, and the mat's over the drain.
I mean, I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Prevent dry
That'd be
clogs.
dreamy, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it definitely will clog up. I mean,
It's like my hair doesn't clog a drain.
yeah, but
my wife's
the
does.
girl's hair for sure does.
Yeah.
So now you can see now. Well, of course I dropped. So that has water that'll sit there. What I normally will do is I will take. Now I'll drop that flexible hose in here, spray that out because then it gets the salt water out of here. It doesn't hurt anything, right here.
Right.
But I'd rather have that be fresh water and then evaporate than dry and salt water and then have it be crystallized. And then I'll spray it down in the bilge. And then usually when I do that, I just spray into the bilge.
Yeah.
And I'll just spray
Get that pump to wash it all.
Just kind of let it filter through. And I've done it. I have some bilge cleaner that I've used just to clean the bilge, it can take away the smell. I haven't done it for probably 6 months.
Because algae will grow down there, right?
Yeah, but I haven't had any.
Oh, really?
No, I've never seen
So
algae.
no smell or anything.
It'll get a little smelly if I leave the salt. If I leave not that water, if I leave this being not rinsed out, it'll get a little bit like open it up and be like kind of smells. But I've not surprisingly it's not been bad. But also that's a perspective of somebody who lives on a boat now. Like when you first get on a boat, they have a lot of weird smells and you get used to them. So, but I've not ever been like, oh, this is disgusting. So yet, I'll say I won't. I have had like, oh, that's gross. We need to clean out like, if you're in somewhere, like I've cleaned some filters that are gross. Like you're in a muggy marina, you're like, oh my gosh, that's disgusting. And it'll get stinky from that. But the other thing is that I try to be very careful about is laying these down the right way. This gets scratched on one side, but not the other.
Yeah.
So I'm
Like
very
that.
particular about making sure that the clean side that's not scratched stays up.
Yep.
Every once in a while they get put down wrong and you catch it. But like if I was to put it down right now like that, that, you're gonna be like, what the heck?
Right.
I'm very much like, I get it. There's things that get down in the crack, and we try to. My kids have this on their schedule once a week to lift them, vacuum it, and then dust it with a dustpan.
Yeah, because dirt just falls through
Just
that crack
falls in
all the time.
Yep, and that way I do that so that if it gets put in there the wrong way, it wouldn't get scratched. But we've pretty successfully
Mm-hmm.
done that. Every once in a while, I'll come down and be like, oh, that's in there backwards. Just drawback to having kids do work. But I just like the fact that you can't tell it like it's nice.
Yeah.
The upside down is definitely not.
Right,
so.
then you know.
Okay, so same thing on this one. Now we're kind of duplicating, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like right now, I can tell that this needs a wipe out.
Just more of the same.
Yeah, this needs a wipe out.
Okay.
But yeah, you have more of the same here. Just other AC. Just remember that you've got your, so this is your starboard AC.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the one that runs here. Just right here.
Where is the unit actually located? Under the bed?
Right here. So I'll go through all that.
Oh, right there.
So same thing. You got the shower. You got the toilet. This would be the dirtiest shower one that will need to be done. This would be your toilet. These are really clean. I mean, to be honest, the toilet one's clean. It really is not an issue. Although it looks like that clamp is maybe rusting, but the actual, like I can see in that thing, it's like shiny.
Okay.
So, but you can see how that one's not, right? The shower,
Mm-hmm.
it's dirty, so it needs cleaned out, but it's disgusting. So it's gonna be full of hair. I won't subject you to that, but it needs to be done. So, so that's that one. And, yep.
Let's clean some up.
And then of course back here under your feet, I'm like contemplating getting knee pads. I'm like,
Yeah,
I
that's
should
a
get
good
knee
idea,
pads.
actually.
Same. So what you got here is same thing. You got your this is gonna be your toilet. So this one's not labeled. So just remember, this is your toilet, and you
So all
know,
one's a toilet.
yep, and you know it's the toilet
Means
because
the AC.
it has a fresh water. Yeah, very good. Fresh water and raw water. So right now, this is angled to raw water. If I turn it, we're on a freshwater head.
Mm.
So now it's just a matter of which way do you want.
Yeah.
And if I'm in, depending on where I'm at, will depend
Yeah.
on what I do. So that's gonna be that. You've got your your water line in there, same thing, on off, obviously, and then this is gonna be for aircon. So you saw we had aircon back there, and you saw we had aircon up here. This side has has 2 of the 3 aircon units. So aircon for this side is right here. So water comes in through here, the raw water comes in, cycles through, cools everything down, raw water goes out. You got, this is the filter, so it's obviously clean. The top of it maybe is a little bit dirty, but clean. The bottom is where the condensate lands, and that condensate drains out.
That's where it's wet down below.
Yep. So that's just the condensate drain out the bottom. So you can see it's just got sitting water because I've been running them lately.
When these fail, why do they fail?
So I had, when I got on the boat, I had bought a brand new one for the larger one inside. And when the tech I use in Florida, if you need him, hopefully you don't, but he was awesome. Like I was so, HVAC is kind of a sketchy business sometimes, but he was amazing. So he came and walked me through a bunch of what was going on. And he actually left me with this unit, but he said what happens is he's like, this compressor fails. And the indicator is that the black will turn to like, it's been too hot and it looks like it's burning up. Like, and then you touch it, you're like, oh my gosh, it's, and then, so what he said is that compressor fails and burns up and then it's beyond repair. He's like, you don't like, I'm like, can't I salvage and just get it? And he's like, no, dude. No. And he's like, just get a whole, so it's like $5,000 or $4,500, brand new unit. And then he left me with the brains to it. He's like, in case for some reason this was to fail, which probably won't happen, but he's like, not, at least you have it. So I have it for you. But he said this was the part that went bad. So
okay.
I was like, okay. He said, you'll know, I can't remember you'll know because the temperature will be the same on the in and the out. Because it's not actually doing
it's not actually doing anything. Yeah, just because this should be hot.
Yeah.
This hose should be hot to the touch, right?
Yeah, and I think he said like what you do is you start over here and you fill the top and the bottom of this, and you're like, because it's the coils are over here. So he's like, dude, check this out. And I was a little bit leery, and then I happened to have a mechanic on the boat at the same time from Just Cats, because they had done some electrical for me, and he was like verified it 100%. Yep, that's exactly the case. Like, you can't salvage this? He's like, oh, you gotta be kidding me. So it was kind of one of those things where I'm like, all right, well, you learn to just trust, but you want to verify. But maybe you could do some things, but it's like, we got a whole new unit. Great, we got a really nice unit. I mean, brand new unit makes it nice.
So the one up here is new, and
Yeah,
this one.
and these ones
do you have
are-
any idea how old those
I
are?
think these are original, both this one and the other one.
Wow.
Is my assumption.
Okay.
I mean, I'm guessing. I can't imagine they got swapped out. I'll tell you this: they look identical to my brand new one, so maybe not. So they could be newer, but I didn't even. I guess I never even asked him, but I just assumed they were all original. But yeah, no idea. But he didn't tell me why it broke though, so I don't know if there's a like maybe it just gets old. Or, he did say if you need to film the Freon, then there's a leak in the system, you need to replace it. So that could be a thing. I was like, you can't fix them. He's like, no, they're not designed.
They're just
to
sealed
be,
units.
Yeah. So I was like, oh, okay. Well, I came from the HVAC space.
Yeah, in the HVAC space, you can replace everything.
Yeah. Yeah. That's how my parents had an HVAC company growing up. So I'm
Yeah.
like, really? I can't. So I was like, okay, well, whatever. That's just the way it goes. So, lesson learned. While we're over here, though.
But they last a long time. That's the good news.
Yeah. Let's
If you
go.
replace one, you probably won't replace it again.
Yeah, that's kind of what I felt like. I was like, yeah, well, whatever. If it needs replaced, like that's kind of my mindset is like, if somebody tells me it needs to be replaced, let's just replace it. Like I'm not in the business of piecing things together. I'm like in the business of coming out here and having fun. And things need fixed, they need fixed. So this is pretty much your main panel. So it has all of the main everything on it. All power in, power out. So everything here is, the other panel is obviously where you control everything, but this is actually where you come to.
Yeah. Oh, this is the junction box for all the wire.
So,
And
I'm not an electrician.
Into this. You don't touch it.
Yeah. The only thing I've done is pulled these out to see if they had blown fuses. So these are fuse holders.
Fuses.
So you pop that out, open that little plastic piece up, has fuses in it, and then you can go look in the book and see like, okay.
So sometimes you might pop a fuse.
I haven't yet.
Okay.
So, but
it should pop the breaker first. The fuse should be higher rated than the breaker.
yeah. So I've not one time have I come down here and found that one of these was blown. But what did happen is when this got plugged and water dripped right here. That was remember I was telling you about that on the call.
Oh yeah.
And this whole bank had to be replaced. Just Cats replaced this whole bank.
Okay.
And then when they did, and I got on the boat, they put 0.01 milliamp fuses here. So everything I turned on, every bilge, every light, everything I turned on the entire boat would not turn on. It would turn on and then shut off. I'm like, what the heck? We troubleshooted it, finally got the tech out, and by the time the tech came out, I had troubleshooted enough to figure out that these fuses were the wrong size. I put all new fuses in here, and then he showed up, and I'm like, dude, check this out. This is what I did. He's like, that was exactly the problem.
Wow.
So every one of these came with a stock fuse holder just to test the probably conductivity to make sure it works. And it tripped as soon as I tried to turn on. Since that first week that we've been on the boat, none of these have tripped.
Right. And so what are they at now? What rating are they?
Each one's different.
Okay. So it's custom to the circuit it's on.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you have to go through and check what it's running, and then you put one in. So, so I just bought a bunch of them, and then I had the tech come and verify.
So how do you know what goes where?
There's the book has it all listed. So if I pull the manual, I'm like, oh, 24.
Okay, so it's wired up back per the manual.
Yep, and I'll be like, oh, 24. Oh, it looks like 24 has a jumper to 25. What's 24 and 25? You go to the manual, and it'll say what 24 and 25 are, and then they correlate and they go up top. You're like, oh, okay. For me, it's pretty complex to figure out.
Yeah.
But like, I brought an electrician on here to help me, and he's like, oh, okay. Oh, 24, 25. Click, jump. Next page. Oh, okay, up here. So it's gonna be this. Click, 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 click. Wire. Change this. Okay. Because I wanted to add an outlet, but I was like, dude, I'm not in the business of adding outlets to a boat. I'm in the business of doing that, back. It's got a little bit, obviously newer, nicer filter setup.
Yeah.
And that's probably 2 or 3 weeks worth because I cleaned them all
It's a
out.
much bigger unit.
Yeah, I think this is a 15,000 BTU. I think the others are 12,000 BTU, or maybe this is a 16,000 and others are 12. Yeah, the other ones are two 12,000s and a 16,000. There's your soft start. Everything else is, power in, out, power in, power out, water in, water out, and then obviously duct. So.
And that's for your generator?
Yep, generator, start battery. So Yeah.
Just a regular marine battery, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep. Super basic. Oh, that's from the old battery. That is.
Oh, you've got a bunch of
all,
them here.
Yeah, all that. Some of the other, oh, they're on the caps. That's what it is. Yeah, some of them have different styles. I refuse to throw things away because I'm like, you never know.
You never know.
I'm like, sometimes I put stuff like, well, I know I'm gonna need that heat if I get to a spot. There's where I'll need it. But, So I'm like, So we're bringing in 1140 watts right now of solar. I don't have the boom out of the way, so it might be partially shaded up there. We're running off the inverter, obviously. I'm running a little bit of power here, plus just the regular system. Like, this is unnecessary use. This is a backlit light, so I'll turn that off. Probably doesn't barely change my DC power output, but I like to turn things off I don't need. Like shower pump, that runs the shower drain. It's weird that it even has a switch here, but I'm like, you might as well leave it on because it's not actually taking power per se, but I do turn the water pressure off a lot of time at night just in case it did get an air bubble in it and just wanted to turn on. It's not necessary. I leave the nav light switch on, but I turn the selector to off, that kind of stuff. But like right now, I can turn on our AC, obviously just to kind of reinstate how it's wired. This main salon AC is ran off the inverter, so I can run this right now off of battery power, which people are like, you can? I mean, that's a cool setup, right? Just be careful. You'll burn 10% of your battery power per hour, pretty much, of your bank.
Even recharging.
What's that?
Even recharging.
Just, I guess it depends. If you're bringing in 1100 watts, you're probably not gonna burn that much. So usually, if you're bringing in a lot less than that, that's when it'll do it. If you're maybe not charging a lot. I want to say, I'm not a conversion guy, but I want to say if it's taking 1200 watts to run that, divide that by, I divide it by 10, but I think it's divided by 12. So you're taking 100 watts an hour out of a 1200 amp hour bank. So I have technically 12 hours of AC runtime.
Right.
So that technically puts you at 8%-ish of runtime, or 8% an hour, but then you already are using other stuff. So with the other usage, you're really burning 10% of your bank per hour. Doesn't seem like a lot, and then 3 hours later you're at 70%. And then on the inverse of that, it feels like it takes about an hour to go up 10% as well if you're running a generator. That might not be accurate. It feels like for every 10% I have to come up, I need to run the generator an hour. I haven't really checked that one as much, but it does feel like that. Obviously, it can vary on what the load is. So I just know if I'm going to run that, it's going to burn 10% an hour. And sometimes that's fine, but like today I got a sunny day, and I'll just replenish, I can replenish the system really easily, especially if I'm putting in 1100 watts. But you can see now we turn and I just hit 700 watts. So now we turn where the sun is being shaded by the boom. I haven't put the runner on the boom.
Right.
So when we're sitting for a while, I'll
move the boom away.
Move to the side. It's based on prevailing winds and our direction. So that's that. I cannot run our other two ACs. They're not wired on the inverter, so they're not set up there on the inverter. We wouldn't want them on the inverter. They would definitely suck too much energy. So those are set to be off. So that's easy. And then, of course, to shut it off, same thing. I usually let it shut off first. Once it shuts off.
And cold air falls, so this one actually ends up down there anyway.
Like I said, I'll set it to like 82 at night just so that it doesn't superheat up here if it's a hot night, so that it will go down. Even if the windows are open, I would still rather have that. It doesn't kill us to run it. It's not bad on anything. So, okay, so that's that.
And it dries out the boat too.
Yeah, which is so nice. Like, that's the only benefit to being at a marina, I think. It's every once in a while. While we're here, a couple things. LPG control turns that light on.
Yep.
So that's how you know.
Yep.
I will tell you this: every once in a while, that light won't come on with LPG.
It's a bad light.
It's just every once in a while, but like right now, it's working again, right?
No, I've heard that. You gotta replace those once in a while.
Yeah. So I was like, and that was where I'm like, we gotta. Somebody's like, hey, LPG's on, but the light. I'm like, that's weird, but it works. So I've been keeping an eye on it, and it's 90% of the time it works, and 10% of the time lately you're like, oh, it didn't kick on, and then you'll come over and then boom, it turns on. So never have I had to like mess with it. It just turns on, but it's just in my mind like, okay, that light could be going. Or there's, my first go-to on something like that is like there's a connection that's a little bit loose, and so you just gotta like my first step would be to look behind there. My second step would be to look over here on this. So just little things like that. One thing that does take a decent amount of power is your fans. So the fan switch is here, and of course we have these fans here.
Just to keep it moving in here on a still day.
Yeah, so if it's still, we'll leave them on. If there's plenty of solar, obviously it's kind of blocked, but I actually like that it cools down the TV in a way. That one, it has, obviously if you're cooking, it blows heat onto your, it blows the heat down onto you. I still tell my wife, like, I keep it on, let that blow heat in and out, but each to sound. Let's see what else on the power side.
There's so much wind coming through, you don't need the fan.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of what else I can tell you on the power side. I talked about some of this stuff. You'll eventually figure out what some of these are for. I don't have it like laid out, but like salon lights also is AIS. So that's also power. The salon lights also have a power supply to the AIS, which is your transponder to show where your location is.
That's weird they're wired to the same breaker.
Yeah, I think probably because it's a 20 amp and it doesn't. The salon lights don't really need.
They don't do much.
20 amp.
Yeah.
Cabin lights. Then you've got a foredeck light, which is your light out front. Of course, your nav lights. You've got your salon lights, cabin lights. So these are just they power each side of the boat. But this is this is actually this is on the AC breaker, but I feel like this is all DC. I feel like
That's
it's
DC?
I feel like because it's like cabin outlets. Oh no, so no, sorry, these are all AC. They're all AC. Aircon, yeah, because they're outlets.
Yeah.
So all outlets are converted. I'm trying to think of what else it ran. That's what it is. Yeah. So yeah, all DC, AC.
And then you've got all your fault lights here.
Yep.
Shore, water pressure. Okay.
Yeah. So those are. This will set up an alarm at 20%. So if you were to drain that below 20%, it will alarm. So we've done it once, and I just didn't like it being that low. So I was like, so we're now like at 50%. Like no, we're below 50. Like also like you want to just have that. It's like an emergency, like a back. I want to have 50% buffer for any things went really bad. I can shut everything else off, and at least I have what I need.
Yeah.
In the event you're out a long ways away, like here, it's not a big deal, right? You can go to the dock or whatever. So let's see. That's all that. Amp breaker that was not used and therefore not an indicator is your water maker. So I just keep that one on. It's your water maker. You got your water heater. So for your port and starboard. I don't remember which one's which. What I do know is that when I run them, I run both. So I don't check them. Your starboard is a brand new water heater. I just bought and installed like 3 months ago. The other one was leaking at the bottom. Didn't work since the day we got on the boat. So we finally just replaced it. So put a brand new one in.
Now you have 2 water heaters.
So it works great. So one under each side, one under each aft bed. So that's that. Okay. So all the water on both sides is the same. So everything I showed you on this side is the same on that side.
Identical.
Except this has the extra AC unit.
Yes.
The difference is this side is going to be, we already went through it. The only difference is that this side has your generator. So it has your generator exhaust and your generator intake, which we looked at when we went through our first video, and we looked at the water coming in for the generator through the filter and into the generator. So that's the only difference there. So that's that. Let's go through this head situation over here. So if you want to put this one into operation, I'll show you how these things work so you can kind of make sense out of them. So you got water comes in, and then you got your black water line that goes out. So it goes out, goes through the side, comes up, and it's going to go inside of this. or it's going to go in here. So,
So-
around the outside.
So black water's coming in the bottom
Black water comes in on the bottom, but it has a pipe that goes all the way to the top to here,
and then dumps.
and then it just dumps over.
Mhm.
That's it. I have a wood plug, bigger, but that same wood plug, inside right here. So the cap is over there. So when the time comes, it's a matter of taking a set of vice grips, going in there, grabbing it, pulling it out, and then now that's back open again. The reason I did that is what I didn't want to have happen is I didn't want this tank to get full from the other toilet, fill up above the inlet for this,
Oh,
which is like right here,
right, and then
and
have
it,
black water come out.
yeah, black water come out into there, or in this case, now that I have it plugged into here. I was like, either way, I don't want black water coming back through. So I was like, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna plug it here, I'm gonna plug it there, and that's completely plugged up. So that's why it doesn't stink. You can't smell, because otherwise it would be open, because you have an open system. So I just did not want to have that as an issue. It just made sense to me to do it that way, with the very cognizant about the fact that like one day we just have to remember that. So I documented it on like a boat nuances, things that you'd want to know that it's there. And if you're like, hey, take